Hi design figures, my name is Matthew Sear and today we are getting into some dynamic variables inside of Figma. We're going to be setting up our dynamic spacing, sizing and scaling tokens, and then we're going to be getting into our max and min tokens and then our rounding tokens. All are going to be dynamic. Then we are going to cover a few interesting tips and tricks on how we can set these up and make them work across multiple screens and multiple screen sizes. So if that interests you, then please sit back, relax, and let's jump into the video. All right, here we are inside of Figma. Let's get into it. So we left off from our original video on dynamic spacing and tokens. We had a large table of our scaling tokens. Now there is a couple of new additions, and don't worry, we'll be building out a very small version of this table, but just to cover a couple of the updates if you are following on from the previous video. We have our scaling tokens and we have a new size token. We're leveraging rem as a way to communicate the base point up and down, and we are adding in an extra label of the current size, and we have added in a fixed size so that you don't need to always use the dynamic spacing tokens if you still want to use the token set. So, let's get into building out all of this, because we're going to start from scratch and understand it from ground up in a nice, easy and quick way. In the demo, we have a button. This button only has 16 pixels at the top, bottom, left and right, and in between we have 8. A gap, and I would like to make sure that we can have this button on this screen, and when it's on this screen the button will be a little smaller. I would like it to go down to a 14 padding ideally, and when it's on my big large screen I want it to be at the 24 padding. So for me to be able to do that and get that particular result, I'll need to set up something either with our tokens and then apply different tokens, or I could create a dynamic set like the one you saw over in the piece here. To do that, it's pretty easy. So I open up there's a brand new file. I'm going to set up a couple of simple scales, and I'm going to figure out what numbers I want to start with. So let's say I said mobile on my small screen, I'm going to start at 14. Maybe I start lower. Maybe I also have an 8. Because I could have an 8, I could have a 12. I could also have potentially a 4. So the reason why, these are all the actual potential numbers that you can use. So I would recommend, if you have existing designs, look at the sizes you have, look at the sizes you use on your small screens, your medium screens, your large screens. And if you're not adjusting your sizes on your screens, then maybe we might need to look into adjusting sizes so that accommodating different screens and accommodating different viewing sizes will help deliver better viewing experiences. So let's say this is my number set for my small, but for my large, I'm going to use the rule of 2 to scale up on my scaling system, but maybe we might need to add a little bit more just so we can see the differences a little clearer. Maybe it's let's say a rule of 8. So if it was a 4, then on a rule of adding 8 to 4, I go to 12. 8 to 8, I go to 16. Also 8 to here, I go to 20. and then I go to 20. What was that? That'd be, yeah, 20. 24. And then now we have that larger set. Maybe we wanted to go up one higher, but I'm going to just make an adapt from one small screen to one large screen. So anything that's 4 will go to 12, anything that 8 will go to 16, so on. Okay? And I can go click in the empty space up to local variables. I am going to have this new collection. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it scaling. Oop. Scaling. And I will actually start to create those variables. We're going to go click create a variable. We're going to add a number. Now, a little trick is if you want, you can add, like, for example, like a hashtag or an @ symbol or a greater than or less than symbol, or some sort of key symbol. I find that they help basically find the set quicker inside of when you're searching up your variables. Now, the scaling variables I'm not exposing across my design system. I'm going to set up a second set, which is size, which will be a kind of a collection of all of those variables. It'll make it a lot easier than having to pick different ones from different modes. So we're going to leave it here, but just so you know, you can actually set this number up, and these will be hidden though. So I'm going to put, like, for my base point here, I'll just basically say 4, and I will add the next one. This will be my 8, and then I will add another one, and this will be 12, and this will be my 14. And I can pretty much just do the exact same here. And it might be a little nice though for you, just for yourself, to make sure that you add something to indicate the point. So this one, for example, is like a small screen version. So maybe I add in S into this just to represent that my base point is starting here, right on my small spectrum. This would be the first one in the row. It will always be the one that you're primarily using, and then of course it will depend on what mode you switch between. I'm going to go and I'm going to say small, and then I'm going to add large, and that will represent my large frame. And then as you can see, I'll just go 12, then I'll go 16, then I'll go 20, then I will go the 24. And that's my actual scaling part of this. So I got my small and I got my large. I'm going to create one more table. But before I do, I will quickly click in here and I'll hide those so that I don't have these exposed, because I don't need to. And having all of these exposed might add a lot of extra tokens and clutter to the design system. So let's hide those and let's create another collection. I'm just going to call this one size. And in my size collection, I can actually add the same set of variables, but this time I'm definitely putting that hashtag in front. And for a base point, I said that I was going to go small, and let's say my small base point was starting at my actual 14 value. I'm going to actually do this downwards from here. I'm going to start with my 14. So I'm going to say this is the 14, and then what I can do is I can actually, depends on what you want. I'm following like the kind of REM vibes here of that being the base point, so that would be my 0. So if I add something like that, it basically means that this was, if you can't put it a full stop, but it means that is a 0. And I can right click, create an alignment, and I can align that value to the actual scaling token I created. I can duplicate that, and I can actually adjust this. I'm not going to adjust this to the exact correct size. I will show you the table I have and you'll be able to use that. That has all the correct sizes and the layouts, but I'll just put something in roughly here. Let's just say that it's that. And this one will represent actually this will be the downwards. I'll have to go down. This will be my 12. This would be something like that. And I will set that to 12. I'll duplicate that again. And let's say that one becomes 8. Duplicate that again. This one will become the 4. Like so. And that will be my size. And the reason also why I did this was because I can click on this and I can also create a string variable, and I'm actually going to use this as like a way to access what size I'm currently on, and I can actually tell other objects to be different based on the size that is actually on. I will say the current size, which I'll drag up to the top, right click, I'll create actually I don't have a current size, so we'll go back to here. I'm going to add in a current size. There we go. So the size actually will be the one that we add in, because this won't be current size, but this will be the size. So this size is small. And this one is large. And by using some simple words, spelling them correct, and making sure that they're simple labels like, you can just really use this for many different things throughout your design. So to set that up, the last one I want to add into here though is just that fixed one. So maybe I want it to be exactly as the small. Maybe I want it to be exactly as the large. It's completely up to you. I'm going to leave it as that small version. So let's just say that your fixed version is your small version in this scenario. I'll go back to my size, and now anywhere I apply this will take along it all the things in the scaling here. And this is the one that I can simply basically provide and put out to everyone. So this will be pushed. And this kind of goes into the next part. When creating some tokens, I found the most amount of success when creating token libraries by creating them in their own individual file. So create a token library for a specific purpose. If you populate it all those pieces in a single file, you can manage it easier and you can share it a little easier. I put all of my sizing, scaling tokens all in the same file, allowing me basically complete control of sizing, scaling in an individual file, which is a lot more cleaner and easier to manage and then easier to share. So I'll just quickly loop back to what I did in that other part in the size piece, and I'll just show you what I have on my one. So if you want to, you can feel free, you can build this one out, but of course it takes a lot longer. What's inside of here is the current size, but also what I have done is to make sure that I have added in what I'm referring to as the rem amount. The base point of this one is at a 16, not the 14 like the other. And that means that it's a 10000. So if this was, for example, had basically a dot there, that would be 1 rem. And I have basically the correct rem value based upon the pixel size for a base point of 16 on this table. I'll scroll down to the bottom. Feel free to copy out the table if you like. If you've copied the table or if you haven't copied the table, it's all good. You can always look back at the video. And there is also a boundless value and a minimum boundless value. We don't need to get into that now. That has everything to do with the scaling and max sizes controls. Let's get back to our demo. And let's then finish this off by understanding our scaling and token values. And let's apply it to our button. So now I have my new sizes, which are down the bottom here. And I can simply apply, for example, the 14, and then I can apply the other 14, and go here, and I can apply the 8. So here is now my new button with my new scaling variables applied. I'm going to create this as a component, and now I can see what happens when I put them in the screens. At the moment, nothing happens, but that's good. That's for a good reason, because I can now click on my screens and I can go to layers. I can actually define the screen. I can say, hey, this is actually a small screen. So because it's a small screen, and this is already at the base point of small, it will be small. But if I go to my large screen and I go to layers, and I go to this and I can say large, now my button is actually a lot bigger. And now my button will adapt dynamically based on the screen size it's in. So now we have dynamic buttons that adapt to the scaling variables that we put on them, and they can basically adjust across screens. To take this any further, you have the abilities to go to local variables and start adding in that extra medium column, and that will allow you the ability to have a medium value in there. So you can go small, medium, and large, and they can be your 3 different screen points. In addition, we actually have this label that's going on. So let's go through and understand what the label is doing to the design. So let's create an alignment there, and let's make sure we align that to that size token. So sometimes we want different buttons, or we want our component to be a different component. We want it to change based on what screen it's on. This is actually quite useful when it comes to, for example, let's say a navigation bar. Now I don't have a navigation bar exactly done out here, but we'll put something together very quickly. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a little circle. All right. we're going to just use this color that I've got going on. I'm just going to put basically 4 of these little circles inside of here, set it to an auto layout, and what I can do is actually just put my tokens on it. Let me add in my 14 there, and let me add in my I'll do 14 by 14 again. And then let's add in a gap of 8. So in this scenario down the bottom here, this could potentially be like that nav bar piece at the bottom. I'll just call it a nav bar. And I can go create as a component. And the great thing is I can actually go here and I can add a variant. And maybe my variant over here is going to be the large version of my navbar. So I'm going to say screen, because this will be the screen that it's going to be on, and this will be the small one. And when it gets to the large screen, instead, what I want it to do is actually to switch it out. I want it to switch it out, and I want it to do this drop down thing here. Let me grab this component. Instead of doing it that way, I'm going to do it this way. And I'm also going to actually just grab my button. I don't see why not. I can grab my buttons here, and let's just paste and replace those. And then let me create another version of this button over here. I'm just going to call this this will be the small version, and this will be the large version. I'm going to call this also screen, maybe screen type. And for example, let's say we don't want either of those in either of these, but let's just say that in this version, this one actually, I might do it the other way around. 1 second. Get rid of that. There we go. And then I can do this. And in this version, I will leave it there as well, like so. And let me just quickly grab, I don't know, some other icon from my icon set. Sure, I'll use the circle one. There we go. Lovely. So now I have 2 button types basically here, and they're defined by 2 different things. And maybe in this scenario over here, we're going to use the other version of this button type. To be honest, we don't even need to. Actually, I'll just show you exactly why we don't even need to. But there you go, there's your 2 types. What we can do with these different types is, actually I probably will need to set this particular row just for that. What we can now do here is actually leverage the size of the screen and assign that to the asset. So if I drag this asset out, I can actually add a little assigned variable. And if you remember in my sizing, I have says current size. size is small. So if current size is small, then current size of small goes into here, which evidently so is not that small. That being said, we can always adjust it. And there we go. So now we have this kind of bottom button section, and it's defined as small, and it's picking up that variable. But what would happen if I grabbed it and chucked it in there? There we go. And now it changes complete size. It changes it to being the elongated button version, and now I can actually just set it as my basically my button drawer. And that's how you can create dynamic scaling that can also set the different basically ways of using the asset functionally, based on the size screen that you have, based on the scaling tokens you have, and that's how we can set up those. So I hope this part has been helpful. The next piece we're going to get into is all about the max and min screen sizes, setting up max min screen controls, allowing you more dynamic flexibility with things exactly like this, but taking them to the next level. I hope that you've enjoyed this content. Please let me know in the description box below. Let's share ideas, and until next time, design thinkers, keep creating amazing things, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.